the best camera settings, which is a secret. I'm going to be telling you that at the end of this video. So please make sure to stick with me till the end if you really want to maximize or get the best out of your iPhone camera. If you are that person who uses the same type of phone like the other person, yet you end up taking an image but realizing that your image is not as quality as the other person, then you are watching the right video, because over here I'm going to be teaching you the best settings to use to take quality images with your iPhone. And I'm purposefully using a little bit of an older model of an iPhone to just demonstrate this whole function. So if you have the latest one, all this knowledge still applies. Unlike Android phones, you realize that there is no setting button on this camera anyway. So what you need to do is that you need to first of all close this particular camera window and now go to settings. So once you click on settings, you scroll through, and what we are actually looking for here is the camera symbol and the name camera attached to it. So once we get to it, we just click on camera, and voila, this is where we will be able to tweak all the photo settings. And first of all, the first thing we see here is the format. So when you click here, you realize that we have high efficiency and we have compatible. And with the two options that we are presented with here, I would suggest that you go with high efficiency because it will help you save a little bit much more space, and the files that are going to come from there are way much more friendlier. Once we are done with that particular setting, we can go to the video. We have various resolutions and frame rate. So the frame rate here simply means that the number of times the camera takes images, stringing them together to form an illusion of motion. Per the standard world, all the Hollywood movies you watch traditionally are actually shot in 24 frames per second, and for the layman this means that the camera is taking about 24 pictures and putting them together to form an illusion of motion. So that means that if I move my hand like this and you are able to watch me right now, it means it's a series of 1 picture, 2 picture, 3 picture, 4, 5, 6, out to 24. Hence, when you play them in rapid succession, you realize that my hand is able to move. So over here, 60 FPS means that you are capturing higher frame rates, and then 24 means you are capturing lower frame rates. Now, I've already told you that 24 is the standard, and in order not to bore you with so much technical details, let's stick with 24 if you are shooting just normal looking videos, or you want your videos to just be normal. Let's say if you want to shoot stuff that you want to slow down, maybe you want some slow motion, then you should consider using any of the high frame rates. But for this particular session, we need just to stick with 24. So make sure your cameras are always recording at 24. And now the difference between the 1080 24 and the 4K is just the size. So 1080 is like this size, then 4K is like 4 times of that particular 1080. I mean, that's just rough mathematics. It's not exactly, but just you kind of get the point. So remember, the higher it is, the more file size you have. But theoretically, it means more quality, even though technically it might not be the same. Just not to confuse you, let's just say that 4K means higher quality. Like I said, technically, it does not really mean higher quality. But in this particular regard, I'll suggest that you shoot 4K. That is, if you really want the highest of quality. So basically, that is all you need to do in this particular session. Depending on the model you are using, you are going to find extra settings than what you are seeing over here. In most of the newer models, you will find things like Apple ProRes, stabilization, log, and many other newer features that have been introduced. And one other thing Apple has done so well on the iPhones are that if you look closely down here, you realize that they always provide some details. And I've realized that most people do not even take their time to read this, because a lot of the functions there are kind of almost self-explanatory. And so if you read some of the information that are usually just under the main functions, I bet you that you'll be very surprised that you'll be discovering a lot of secrets on all these settings that I do speak about. So down here too, we have show pile formats and all that. Like I said, these are a little bit technical and this may be for professionals, so I'm going to skip those ones for maybe probably a later video when we are getting much more technical on camera settings. So we are done with this particular menu too. So we go back, and the next thing we see here is the slow-mo. And like I already said, higher frame rate means that you'll be able to slow it down. So automatically, instead of putting it into a video editor and slowing it down, iPhone has done a pretty much very good job of letting you be able to slow down the footage right inside the phone. So the phone will slow down the footage for you. So in this particular case, if you want to speed the whole thing up in a very slow mode, then you choose higher frame rate. So that should be like 240 FPS. FPS simply means frames per second. So this will give you a much more extremely slow motion. If you want a little bit of medium format kind of slow motion, you use 120 FPS. But the standard form of slow motion we filmmakers mostly use is what we call the 60 FPS, which simply means 60 frames per second. And 60 frames per second is like the most acceptable or the most standard format of slow motion. But the extreme ones are the 240 FPS and 120 FPS and all those ones that we do have here. And once again, we do have 1080, which is at 240 FPS into brackets high efficiency. And like I already spoke about, avoid anything highly efficient because you are simply telling it to be efficient with your space. And like already stated, being efficient means that it's going to be cutting off some of your camera quality just to stay efficient. So what does this whole thing teach you? It means that if you want to shoot the best quality images or videos on your iPhone, you must be willing to have so much space on the phone. And that is what it simply means. It's just unfortunate that it comes at a price of your space. So just be ready to accommodate higher file sizes if you want the best out of your iPhone. And the last major technical setting we're going to be looking at is the preserve setting. If you open the preserve settings right here, almost all the things there are already self-explanatory. And if you read down, you are going to get all the details. But the one that's I always focus on here is just the auto adjustment. And with this particular function, I prefer to have it on because anything automatic, trust me, cannot be trusted with your phone because our phones are already doing so much of computational photography. Most of what we are seeing, the bokeh and most of the stuff are not real. It's just putting together so many parts of an image to get us the best result. Hence, a lot of adjustments are already going on in the background, so I do not intend to add my exposure to that. So I always intend to keep it on to prevent the phone from making any further adjustments. So in this case, let's have it on. Then we come back and of course, scan QR codes and all these other ones. These are very basic stuff. And then the other thing I like to do is to have my grid on. The grid will make sure that you have all those 4 boxes on the camera screen, and this is called the rule of thirds. And simply, it's going to allow you to be able to compose object correctly on screen. And what this box is all about is that it says that you put things or points of interest at the intersection parts of these boxes that you see on the screen. So never put things in the middle. If you put things in the middle, it begins to seem imposing. But that is a beautiful thing about art. That means that if you want something to be imposing, break that rule and put the person or put that particular point of interest in the middle. However, if it's your intention to make it look natural, please put things at the intersection. Now that you know this, trust me, you can never unsee it because your favorite movie and most of the things you used to watch all follow this particular rule. When someone is looking somewhere, the person is kept at one part of the screen, giving space to the other side. Sorry for ruining this for you. Now, anytime you see a quality short video or image, you are definitely going to be looking out for that. The last major setting here has to do with the smart HDR feature. HDR simply means high dynamic range. Now, what this means is that the differences between the white and the black parts of the image, in layman terms, this simply means that you'll be able to see more in darkness and see more of brightness at the same time. If you have a shadow and a bright side of the image, you either sacrifice one and have another side. But when you have this smart feature on, you can have details in the shadowy parts and details in the highlight parts all at the same time. And how your phone is doing this is taking images of the shadow sides and taking images of the bright side and combining these things together to form one image. And it's doing this so quick that when you click your shutter button within the shortest possible time, it will take all these images, put them together to be able to form one particular image, which the image will be so bright that if someone is sitting in the shadows, you can see the person. And if someone is standing at the brighter side of the image, you can see both of them all at the same time. So this is a very good feature, but there are times where, trust me, you would want to turn this off and just stick to one image. If you do that, you are definitely going to be sacrificing details either in the shadows or in the highlights. So you need to just choose one, get the perfect lighting and work in that particular condition. If that is your mindset in staying disciplined, I do recommend that turn smart HDR off. Like I already said, phone photography in itself is already all about computational photography. So whether you have smart HDR on or not, my own philosophy here is that the phone is already doing a lot of processing. You are still sure to get some level of high quality. Now that we are done with the settings here, all we need to do is to now go back to the camera itself. And what I now want to show you here is that you can manually adjust the exposure anytime you're about to take an image. When we tap on the screen once, we can hold on the sun symbol and look at what happens when we are sending it down. It dims the image, and when we move it up, you realize that it begins to brighten the image. So in this case, we just pull it down, and then we can keep it like this, and we go ahead and take our picture. And the other thing is also where to keep your blur. Sometimes if you are recording, you realize that it keeps kind of like briefing, the camera briefs in and out. So to prevent that, if let's say this is a character that we are trying to capture, we just click on him, make sure that our exposure there is right. Then we second click and hold, and then you realize that we have AEAF lock app. It means that whether the person moves or not, the camera is really going to be stable and you are not going to get that kind of briefing that comes with phone footage. And this is how you can fool your audience into thinking that you shot your video using a professional camera, because professional cameras, of course, would definitely not be briefing if they are actually shooting in manual mode. Now, those are the major camera settings that will certainly make sure that you are fully maximizing the quality of your iPhone camera. I did promise you a major secret at the end where I would show you the last secret and yet the best camera setting for your iPhone. Are you ready for that? Now, before I go into it, if you see my face for the very first time, welcome. This is African Amaze channel. Over here, I do talk about cinematography, photography, editing, and all its related branches. If all this sounds interesting, I do much appreciate it if you do click on the subscribe button. Please make sure to do turn on the post notification bell so you are notified anytime I drop awesome content like this right here from the continent of Africa. And please make sure to click on the like button because it goes a long way in helping other people discover this channel right here on YouTube. Thank you very much for your generosity. Let's get back into the last point. Now, the last setting I am talking about, well, forgive me, it might not really be a setting, but these right here are the camera lenses of the iPhone. Because we use this to receive our calls and other details and it goes into our pockets, most of our fingers and stuff always touch here. So by the time we remove it and start to take images, you realize that for most cases, the image is blurred or might not provide the best kind of images that the phone was designed for. So the best camera settings in the world for me, for using a phone, first of all, is to get something or just even use your shirt, simply clean the surface of your camera lens. I cannot stress this enough. If you have the best camera settings, yet your lens is not clean, then I'm sorry, you are still not going to be able to capture best images. This is the truth, and I hope you do stick with that. Thank you so much for watching this video. And if you are someone who does not use an iPhone but use an Android phone, click here to watch a similar video where I show you how to maximize the best out of your Android phone. Until next time, as always, guys, keep practicing filmmaking. Peace out.